Hi, I'm Paula Zahn, and tonight we're on the case in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, about an hour north of Miami. Residents of this popular tourist destination were stunned after a young mother was found savagely murdered in her own home. As police studied the evidence at the crime scene, a terrifying story of Minerva Cantu's last moments alive came into focus. But it would take decades for investigators to piece together the trail of clues that led to her cold-hearted killer. November 27th, 1990. It was close to 6 p.m. when Fermin Cantu arrived home from work. He was concerned when he noticed the front door was open. But his heart stopped when he stepped inside and found the lifeless body of his 26-year-old wife, Minerva, tied up on the floor of their living room. What did Mr. Cantu walk into when he arrived home?
He walked into a nightmare. The entire inside of the residence was ransacked. He immediately saw his wife on the ground, motionless in the living room.
His wife laying on the floor, bound and gagged.
She had a towel that was wrapped around her face, covering her nose and her mouth, and that was secured with duct tape.
Fermin frantically attempted to save his wife.
He cut the duct tape and the towel that was wrapped around the lower portion of her face, trying to revive her.
But it was too late. Fermin grabbed the phone and tried to call the police.
He then realized the phone cord had been cut, so he yelled to a neighbor behind him, and she's the one who called 911.
While Fermin waited for police to arrive, he desperately tried to locate his two young children.
He found his 18-month-old son in the crib, crying in the back bedroom. His daughter was not located at the house.
Before the police arrived, Minerva's niece, Sonia Flores, pulled up to her aunt's house. She was worried why she had been contacted to take Minerva's 8-year-old daughter, Jacinia, home that afternoon.
Her husband was outside with the baby. I said, what happened? Nobody picked up Jacinia.
Fermin then broke the devastating news.
He says, she's gone. And I said, what do you mean she's gone? He says, she's dead. So I ran in the house, and I saw her laying on the floor.
How traumatized were you by what you saw?
It was just horrible.
Seconds later, police ushered Sonia from the house. Detective Tim Barbucio was assigned to the case. Describe to me what you saw as you walked inside the Cantu's home.
She was laying on her left side. Her wrists are bound to her ankles. Her hair has duct tape stuck to it. Blood vessels broken around her eyes. It was terrible.
For Detective Tim Barbucio, this investigation was his first homicide.
I was a 24-year-old kid with a whopping 13 months under my belt of detective experience. I was nervous, and I wanted to solve it.
And the gruesome scene in the living room only added to every officer's resolve. What was determined to be her cause of death?
Asphyxiation. I believe they put the towel around her face to prevent anyone from hearing her scream.
Items from the home had been used to bind Minerva.
The phone cord that had been cut was used as a ligature They also noticed that an electrical cord had been cut, and that also was used as a ligature.
We had a very good crime scene investigator. He collected the ligatures, he collected the tape, the towel, he processed for latent prints, did fingernail scrapings.
Minerva's orange t-shirt and shorts were also bagged and tagged. Meanwhile, analysts continued to sift through the chaotic scene for additional clues. How badly ransacked was the home?
It was pretty bad. There was stuff thrown all about the floor, and it looks like they went through every room.
Fermin Cantu provided detectives with a theory of why his home had been torn apart.
The Cantus sold gold jewelry on the weekends at the local flea market, and we were able to determine that there was cash and a lot of jewelry that was missing from the residence.
According to her husband, it was about $50,000 in jewelry, as well as $5,000 in cash that was supposed to be in her purse.
Minerva's car, a maroon Mercury Cougar, was also missing.
Her car had been stolen, so we were putting out a bolo for that as well.
While detectives searched for the car, officers began to canvass the area. And a disturbing story from a witness gave detectives their first break in the Minerva Cantu murder investigation. Six-year-old Minerva Cantu had been robbed and murdered in a brutal home invasion. Police had found little evidence at the crime scene to move the case forward. Meanwhile, those closest to Minerva were trying to come to terms with their devastating loss.
I just felt so much sadness that day.
At the tender age of 8, Jacinia had to overcome the terrible tragedy. You were very young when you lost your mom, but I know you still have vivid memories of her. What do you remember the most?
Mainly her character, the way she was. We're a very tight-knit family.
Minerva's murder was a blow to many loved ones. She had been a role model and a mentor to her niece Sonia, who was 8 months pregnant at the time of the attack.
She was like a second mom to me. She was planning my baby shower.
Minerva had been a dedicated stay-at-home mother who operated a jewelry stand at the flea market on weekends to help support her family.
Selling jewelry was her part-time job, and she loved it. She loved being around people. She was a wonderful person, always happy, smiling.
Investigators now believed it was that part-time job that had made Minerva a target of the savage attack. And as they searched for a potential suspect, the first person they questioned was her husband, Fermin. The distraught father of 2 told police that he had been at his landscaping job that day from 6 a.m. until he returned home at 6 p.m.
And it wasn't until he got home that he discovered her.
Could someone corroborate the fact that he was at work all day?
Yes, we confirmed through his employer that he was at work all day.
Police were confident Minerva had been dead for several hours when Fermin contacted police. And conversations with other friends helped narrow the window in which the crime had taken place. Were you able to piece together a timeline of Minerva's last known whereabouts?
Yes. She had been on the phone with a friend, and it was 2 o'clock. She said, I'm running late to pick up my daughter from school. I have to go. And she hung up the phone.
But Minerva never arrived. At 2:30, when no one showed up to pick up Jacinia, the school called the Cantu residence. There was no answer.
I just knew something was wrong.
That must have been really scary for you.
It was extremely.
The friend told police that she had stopped by at 3:30, assuming that Minerva and Jacinia would be home from school.
She tried to come by the house. She realized that the car was not in the driveway.
Minerva was alive and well at 2 p.m., and her stolen car was already missing before 3:30. The details convinced investigators that the attack had most likely taken place before she left her home after the 2 p.m. call. And a conversation with one of the Cantu's neighbors added weight to that theory.
We were able to locate a witness that lived just north of the Cantu residence. The witness observed 2 white males stop right in front of the victim's residence and stand there for a while.
So she was looking from inside her home out?
She was on her front porch. I don't know how they didn't see her, but they apparently went right down to the Cantu residence and never paid her any mind.
The neighbor watched the 2 men as they lingered outside the Cantu's home from 1:30 until at least 1:50 on the afternoon of the murder.
Unfortunately, it began to rain, so she quickly had to run inside the house, and that was the last time that she saw them.
Although the neighbor never saw the 2 men enter or leave the Cantu's home, she was able to help police create composite sketches of them. How did she describe the 2 men?
She described them as being in their early 20s. One was taller than the other. He had dark wavy hair and was carrying the black pouch with him.
Based on the information they had collected, police were confident the neighbor had seen Minerva's killers just minutes before the attack. And they hoped the sketches she helped create would generate the tip that brought them to justice. Police trying to solve the murder of Minerva Cantu had established a tight timeline in which the crime had taken place. They were convinced that the young mother had been killed just minutes after her final phone call at 2 p.m. And that made one of Minerva's neighbors a critical witness. She had seen 2 suspicious men lurking outside the Cantu residence just before that window. Now investigators hoped that composite sketches she helped create would provide the next lead on the case. What kind of response did you get to the composite sketches once you went public with them?
It generated a lot of phone calls.
Officers fanned out to track down every tip. But before they could question any potential suspects, a major clue was uncovered. Minerva's missing car was discovered just blocks away from the crime scene.
This is the area where the victim's vehicle was found the next day, right at the mouth of this alleyway.
Investigators considered several possible reasons why it had been abandoned so close to where it had been stolen.
We thought maybe it was somebody local since they only drove at such a short distance.
Why do you think the suspects abandoned the vehicle just a couple blocks from Minerva's home?
I believe they used that vehicle to escape from the crime scene and had someone pick them up. So they quickly just dumped the vehicle.
The fact that Minerva's car was abandoned so quickly was another detail that led investigators to believe The crime had been carefully planned and executed. And what analysts found after they scoured the stolen car for clues strengthened that theory. Was there any evidence left inside the car that moved the case forward?
We found nothing in the car or outside the car.
Were you able to find any witnesses who saw the men abandon the car?
No.
How frustrating was that for you?
Extremely frustrating.
But just when it seemed the investigation was back to square one, officers received a promising lead about a young man named Sean.
Sean worked in a local supermarket, and his boss had seen the composites in the newspaper.
He believed that the composite resembled Sean, so detectives immediately followed up on that.
As investigators dug deeper, it quickly became clear there was more than just Sean's appearance that caught his boss's attention. The grocery store manager was suspicious of how his employee had come into an expensive new ring.
Sean had just got engaged to his girlfriend, gave her this ring.
And there was more.
The night of the homicide, they left town. That was suspicious.
Police were already preparing to bring Sean in for questioning when another piece of the puzzle appeared to fall into place.
We received a call from a local pawn shop owner. A female came into the store trying to pawn some gold charms.
He believed the gold charms sounded like the ones he had read about in the newspaper and police flyers, detailing items stolen during Minerva's murder.
The pawn shop owner began to question the girl, and she ran out of the store.
The owner had gotten a good look at the charms the woman wanted to sell him.
The pawn shop owner could describe one of the charms as being like a moon crest. Furman Cantu said that his wife had one like that.
Was he able to give you a description of the woman who he said had come in to sell the charms?
A white female, reddish brown hair.
The general description seemed to be very similar to Sean's fiancée. Investigators had just put out an APB on the couple when they suddenly turned themselves in.
They voluntarily came in to us because he had been told that he was being looked at as a suspect.
The grocery store worker claimed he could explain everything. What was Sean's alibi for the day of the murder?
He had said that they were staying at a friend's house and that friend kicked them out. So they had nowhere to stay. They decided they're going to go to Connecticut and came back 3 days later.
Police remained skeptical and pressed Sean's fiancée about her engagement ring. Were you able to get a look at her new ring?
Yes, yes. I'm the one that took the photograph of it and showed it to Mr. Cantu. When he confirmed that the ring was not his wife's ring.
Police also confirmed Sean's fiancée had not been the young woman who visited the pawn shop.
It wasn't her. We never were able to identify that person that went into that pawn shop.
In the end, the series of circumstantial clues turned out to be nothing more than an unfortunate coincidence. After passing a polygraph, Sean and his fiancée were cleared. The investigation was now back to square one, and friends and loved ones began to fear that Minerva Cantu's killers might never face justice. Police had chased dozens of tips about the two men seen lurking outside Minerva Cantu's home just minutes before her murder. But despite composite sketches and the countless hours of hard work, the case had ground to a standstill. Then, in March 1991, a confidential informant provided detectives with a promising new lead. Police got their next big break in the case from an informant. What did he tell them?
He advised police that he and a subject by the name of Randy Roberts had actually cased the Minerva Cantu residence to commit a burglary.
The informant claimed that he and Roberts had identified the Cantus' home as a high-value target for a robbery.
Randy Roberts had received information that the Cantus had a large sum of jewelry in the residence.
The advanced planning the informant described fit with the way police believed the crime had unfolded. And his tip became even more credible when police examined Randy Roberts' criminal history and background. Who was Randy Roberts, and how did he know about the Cantus' jewelry business?
Randy Roberts would basically commit home invasion, robberies, burglaries.
Still, detectives remained skeptical. They asked the informant how Roberts had developed his inside information on the Cantus. His answer was shocking.
He had a lady by the name of Esther and her husband Julio give him tips or give him information as to places that might be a potential target.
Could Randy Roberts have been responsible for the murder of Minerva Cantu? Everything police had discovered seemed to make him the prime suspect in the case. And then the informant added even more evidence. He said that Roberts had committed a very similar robbery just a few miles away.
The same confidential informant told police that Randy Roberts had also committed a home invasion robbery in Boynton Beach, nearby, with an unknown accomplice.
Many details of the two crimes were identical.
During the Boynton Beach home invasion, they tied up the lady and her husband, and then they left the residence stealing the vehicle, and they abandoned the vehicle close by.
What were the key differences between what happened and the Boynton Beach home invasion?
People who were victims of the home invasion lived to tell their story. Minerva Cantu was murdered.
Police took Roberts into custody for the home invasion in Boynton Beach after the couple he robbed identified him as their assailant during a lineup.
He admitted to the Boynton Beach home invasion.
Roberts even provided police with the name of his accomplice in the Boynton Beach crime, a man he knew as Jesse. But his tone changed when police asked him about the robbery at the Cantus' home. Did he deny being involved in Minerva's murder?
Yes, he adamantly denied being involved in the murder of Minerva Cantu.
But Roberts did have information about the crime. He claimed that he and Jesse had initially prepared to rob the Cantus together.
He and Jesse went to the residence and cased out the residence a couple times prior to the homicide.
Roberts maintained that when it was time to commit the robbery, Jesse had done it without him. And he mentioned the same married couple as the confidential informant had as the source of his information.
He was told by Esther and Julio that Jesse and a cousin from New Jersey had actually committed the crime. And he was mad because it was a crime he was going to commit.
Roberts insisted he didn't know Jesse's last name, and he had no information about the second man involved in the robbery. Were investigators thinking he could have been the second of the two men standing outside Minerva's home the afternoon of the murder?
Definitely at that point, they could not rule him out as being a suspect.
Investigators believe that the couple Roberts mentioned, Esther and her husband Julio, knew who was at the Cantus' home that day. Officer Pete Ebel was part of the team assigned to watch them.
We were given the task of doing surveillance on some suspects that had some involvement with some jewelry. They looked promising.
Police then utilized their confidential informant to try to get additional evidence.
The confidential informant would secretly record telephone conversations or in-person meetings with Esther and Julio.
During the conversations, the answer to several puzzling details of the crime became clear, including why Minerva's killers had taken her car.
She was just leaving when they walked in, and she had everything in the car. They took the car, they took the jewelry, everything. It was so easy.
The secret recordings also confirmed that Jesse had been involved.
She messed up there.
That's Jesse?
Yeah.
They blew it up.
She messed up now.
Up to the power and
Then the informant asked Esther and Julio in Spanish if Randy Roberts had been Jesse's accomplice.
él fue el de la vieja esa que mataron.
Yeah.
The Randy.
No, it wasn't he. He would have got a lot of money. I know it wasn't he. He said, if I would have done it, that lady would have done it.
After reviewing all of the tape-recorded calls, police were convinced that Randy Roberts was not involved in the murder of Minerva Cantu.
At no time did anyone ever implicate Randy Roberts in the homicide. It was always referring to Jesse.
Following the tape-recorded conversations, Esther and her husband Julio were questioned by police. But despite all the evidence to the contrary, the couple denied knowing anything about the murder and refused to cooperate. Were investigators able to make any arrests after getting this information?
No, they were not.
Why is that?
They were working closely with the state attorney's office, and at the time, they just didn't feel that there was sufficient evidence to make an arrest. You get one chance to make the arrest.
Investigators on the case found the decision extremely frustrating.
We couldn't put all the pieces together. It was just a very difficult case with a lot of dead ends, you know, and they all went cold eventually.
And for more than 2 decades, it stayed that way until science and relentless police work finally landed Minerva Cantu's killers back in the crosshairs of their investigation. Investigators trying to solve the murder of Minerva Cantu had come very close to identifying a suspect. But even after police obtained tape recordings that indicated a man named Jesse had killed her, the case went cold. And it stayed that way as Minerva's 2 young children grew into adults, desperate for answers. Did you become increasingly frustrated and angry that her case wasn't solved?
I did. I wanted justice. It was just horrible. Horrible for someone to do something like this to her. And to leave us to have no mother to grow up.
Because so much time had passed, did you eventually lose hope that the case would be solved?
I did, yes.
Then, in 2014, Jacinia was contacted by Detective Paige McCann from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. When you looked at the case file for the first time, did you think you had a chance to solve it?
Yes, I did. I believe that the initial investigators did a fantastic job. It was just missing that last piece of the puzzle.
And the new team of detectives hoped that the last piece might be the identification of their prime suspect's real name. Investigators spoke with confidential informants and pored over countless case files searching for that answer. Were police able to learn who Jesse was?
Yes, they believe that Jesse is Jaffer Negron.
Negron's criminal history convinced detectives they were on the right track. What did you end up learning about Jaffer Negron?
He had prior arrests for stealing vehicles. He had some drug charges, some weapon charges. He was currently living in North Carolina at the time of my investigation.
But before Detective McCann confronted Negron, she went back through every item collected at the crime scene, hoping to uncover physical evidence that would seal the case against him.
This is a picture of the towel that the suspect used to cover Minerva Cantu's head. They used several pieces of duct tape in order to secure this tightly to her head.
I was very hopeful. Duct tape is the gold mine for trace evidence.
Investigators sent the duct tape to the crime lab for testing. The results were surprising.
We were hopeful that the duct tape would yield a DNA profile identifying the suspects, but unfortunately, we only obtained Minerva Cantu's DNA.
I couldn't believe it. I was crushed. There we are, back to ground zero.
But the investigators fought through the disappointment and tested other less likely pieces of evidence.
Minerva's orange shirt, and also some scrapings from her fingernails.
What were the test results?
For the orange shirt and the fingernail scrapings, there was a mixture that involved Minerva Cantu, as well as foreign DNA profiles.
Investigators were certain that the DNA would be a match to Jaffer Negron, but they still needed to obtain a sample for testing. What was your strategy for getting his DNA?
I contacted the Harnett County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina and requested their assistance. They spent many, many man-hours following him around and finally were able to obtain a cigarette butt that he had discarded. And we submitted it for DNA analysis.
The testing confirmed what investigators already knew.
His DNA profile was consistent with a foreign DNA profile obtained from the orange shirt as well as the fingernail scrapings.
For investigators, it was an incredibly satisfying moment.
Wow, all that emotion, all those years of frustration, that little kid laying in that crib, that young girl, that husband whose wife was brutally murdered, and all of a sudden, wow, we got him.
Investigators were now certain they had identified at least one of the two men responsible for the murder of Minerva Cantu. But they were still convinced Negron had an accomplice.
We had witnesses at the scene that said two men were seen out in front.
Investigators hoped Negron would provide them the name of his partner in crime during a videotape interview in his home state of North Carolina. Detective McCann started with basic questions.
I'm going to show you a picture of the victim in this case, and just let me know if you recognize her.
I don't recall.
This is 421 North F Street. You ever remember being at that house?
I don't recall. I mean, this house looks a lot of different houses.
Negron denied knowing Randy Roberts, Esther, and her husband Julio, and claimed he was not part of a robbery ring in Palm Beach.
Do you know why they would bring your name up?
Maybe they were trying to throw me under the bus or something like that. I never killed nobody, period. I did not kill that thing. They might have mentioned my name, but I didn't do what you think I did.
After countless denials and evasive answers, Negron was confronted with the evidence that proved he was lying.
Your DNA was found in 2 areas at the crime scene, okay? And you really haven't been able to explain how they could have gotten in those areas.
I didn't have nothing to do with that.
So there wouldn't be any reason at all for your DNA to be anywhere in that house?
I have no idea, why my DNA would be in that house.
But slowly, Negron began to waver under the pressure of the evidence.
If my DNA is there, that means I was there. And all I'm telling you is I don't remember that.
What was going through your mind as you questioned him and heard his answers?
I just wanted to know why. Why did they not take off the towel from around her face? I mean, that would have been simple. To take that off, she wouldn't have suffocated. It's a tragedy.
Did you sense you were ever going to get a confession out of him?
No, I didn't think he would confess, and he never provided any additional information that would lead us to who his accomplice was.
Jeffrey Negron was charged with the murder of Minerva Cantu and extradited back to Florida to stand trial. For Minerva's family, it was news they had waited more than 25 years to hear. Can you take me back to that moment where you were informed that the man who was suspected of killing your mother had been arrested?
I literally just cried because I just never thought I would see that day.
It was shocking. I couldn't believe it. It finally happened. Somebody finally got caught for doing this horrible thing to my aunt.
It was a moment of vindication for the first detective on the case. What was your reaction when years later you found out there had finally been an arrest?
I was thrilled. I didn't think it would ever get solved.
When Jeffrey Negron's trial opened in June of 2019, prosecutors told the packed courtroom their theory of how Negron and his accomplice committed the brutal home invasion.
They weren't expecting anybody to be in the home. They were surprised. They tied up Minerva Cantu.
She was getting ready to leave to go pick up her daughter from school. Based on statements provided in his own words to Esther and Julio, he used the duct tape and as well as put the towel over her mouth so she couldn't scream any longer.
Jasenia Cantu listened to the gruesome details with her loved ones. I know it was extremely important for you and your brother to attend the trial. Can you explain to us why that was critical for you?
For my mom to know that we're still here seeking justice for her. It was extremely difficult to look at someone and know that they're the ones responsible for your mother not being here. It was heartbreaking.
After a 3-day trial, Jeffrey Negron was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 25 years. For Minerva's loved ones, the verdict was a relief, but they believe there is still more to be done before they feel justice has been served.
We still don't know the whole story of why, and he didn't do this alone.
Investigators agree. Is Minerva Cantu's case still active?
Yes, there was a second accomplice, so it won't be completely closed until we can identify that second accomplice.
Law enforcement continues to look for that accomplice. Are you hopeful that their investigation might lead to another arrest?
We waited all these years, and we got him. I still have hope.
A hope that is fueled by the loving memories of a woman who meant so much to so many. Is your mom a daily presence in your life?
She is constant. And the one lesson I always learned from her was to have a good presence, be good to people. She was a good person.
Hi, I'm Paula Zahn, and tonight we're on the case in Frederick, Maryland, about an hour from Washington, D.C. The close-knit community was stunned when news broke that 15-year-old Stacy Hoffmaster had vanished off her front porch just moments after her mother had seen her there. Fear over what might have happened to the friendly high school freshman forced her family and police to consider many troubling possibilities. But the reality of what actually happened was far worse than any of them could have imagined. Wednesday, October 2nd, 1996. It was a cold, crisp afternoon in Maryland when a call came in to the Frederick Police Department. On the line was Vicki Hoffmaster. She was frantic because her 15-year-old daughter, Stacy, was missing. When was the last time she had seen her daughter?
She had not seen her daughter since the day prior. At around 1 o'clock, she had come home from work a little bit early, and Stacy was on the front porch of their house.
Was she surprised to see her daughter home that afternoon?
Yes, Stacy had left school early.
Stacy was skipping school that day, so they sort of met eyes. She pulled into the back of the house where the parking area was, and by the time she had come out to the front of the house, Stacy was gone.
That afternoon, Stacy's family believed the teenager had left to avoid a confrontation with her mother over cutting school. What went through your mind when you heard that your sister was missing?
I wasn't worried because I just figured maybe she had went off with a friend and decided to stay at their house for a night.
But Stacy's brother Chris and the rest of her loved ones began to worry when they discovered that none of Stacy's friends had heard from her. Even her boyfriend Alfie hadn't seen her since they had lunch together the afternoon she disappeared.
Alfie told us that they came here and picked up their lunch. Stacy got chicken nuggets, french fries, and a soda. After they got their food, they walked back to Stacy's house. He lives about a mile down that direction. They actually ate their lunch on Stacy's porch.
Stacy's mother had come home just minutes after that lunch was over. Alfie claimed he had already gone back to work and had made plans to see Stacy later that afternoon.
He told Stacy they would see each other when they got off work at around 3 o'clock, and she agreed to meet him.
Did she ever show up at 3 p.m.?
No, ma'am, she didn't show up.
Investigators searched Stacy's home and front yard for anything that might explain her disappearance. Could investigators find any evidence of foul play?
No. What was on the stoop was the McDonald's wrappers from what she had eaten. That was it.
With no evidence of an abduction, police weren't sure a crime had even been committed.
It made sense that she walked away. Her mother was clearly mad.
There were no indications of any wrongdoing at the time.
But a closer examination revealed evidence that made the theory that Stacy had left on her own harder to accept.
If she had run away voluntarily, she would have taken some clothes. She would have taken her book bag. She would have taken her wallet. You know, everything of hers was there.
The mysterious missing persons investigation quickly became big news in Frederick, and police received dozens of tips from people who believed they had actually seen Stacy alive and well. Did any of the sightings eventually help investigators find her?
No, none of them.
Police continued to run down every lead. But as the weeks turned into months, many feared that the search for Stacy Hoffmaster would end badly. During those dark days, her family turned to their faith. What do you remember about those months where you and your family were waiting for answers?
It was a lot of worrying and wondering where she could be, when she's gonna come home.
Then, 3 months after Stacy went missing, 2 men walking in the nearby woods made a shocking discovery.
2 local men were in this area looking for aluminum cans. They came across a blue blanket lying on the ground. It was weighed down by several stones. It caught their attention. They went over, they lifted the blanket up, and they discovered the remains of human female.
It was clear the young woman had been the victim of a savage, sexually motivated attack.
She was bound at the hands and at the feet, and they found a ligature around her throat, and she also had a sock that was protruding from her mouth.
The victim was naked and unrecognizable, her clothing scattered nearby.
They found blue sweatpants and a blue sweatshirt that had a fire department logo on them, a pair of Fila sneakers. Her underwear were recovered in the general area, and they later recovered her bra that was just a slight distance away.
The clothing and the rope the young woman had been bound with were collected as evidence. What type of rope was the victim tied with?
It was a yellow nylon rope that you would use for camping or boating.
At the end of the ropes, there was these nails. The type of nails that they used to nail in railroad ties.
They also could have been used as stakes to secure a tent. Police paid careful attention to the quilted blanket that was used to conceal the young woman's body. What kind of blanket was used to cover the victim?
It was a blue mover-style blanket, kind of heavy.
The blanket had a distinct tear mark running down one side. Was there anything at the scene that helped the investigators identify the victim?
No, they searched the area. There was nothing on scene that they could use immediately to identify her.
But prosecutor Nancy Ham, who had just begun her career at the district attorney's office, believed she knew who had been found. The sweatpants and sweatshirt found at the crime scene were a match to the one Stacy had been wearing the afternoon she disappeared. What went through your mind when you heard that a body of a young girl had been found in the woods?
I remember thinking, it's got to be Stacy Hoffmaster.
Police in Frederick, Maryland had just been called to a grim crime scene. The body of a young woman was found under a moving blanket with her hands and feet bound together with a yellow rope. It appeared she had been strangled to death during a sexually motivated attack. What kind of a human being was capable of killing a young girl that way?
I couldn't even describe it. Someone that's very evil.
investigators believe they knew the identity of the victim. Blue sweatpants and a blue sweatshirt discovered near the body matched what 15-year-old Stacy Hoffmaster had been wearing the day she disappeared. And the results of the medical examiner's report confirmed everyone's worst fears.
Stacy had a bone abnormality in her foot, so they had x-rays. They were able to compare the x-rays to x-rays that the MEA had taken and were able to confirm her identity that way.
The autopsy ultimately painted a terrifying picture of the teenager's last moments alive. The murder weapon had been a thin piece of rope found around Stacy's neck. What did the medical examiner determine had happened to her?
They ruled that the cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation, ligature.
The rope that was used to strangle her was tied almost like a noose. It was so tight. The medical examiner said he had to actually cut it off, and it was this big, this big. It was tiny, like he pulled it that tight. It just made me sick.
Other injuries Stacy suffered help investigators sharpen their theory of how the sadistic attack unfolded. Could the medical examiner find any signs of a struggle?
She had a pretty bad contusion to her forehead, and the medical examiner said it would have made her woozy, and it would have made it very difficult for her to fight.
Biological evidence confirmed that Stacy had been sexually assaulted. Was there any doubt in your mind that whoever had left the biological evidence behind had not only raped Stacy, but killed her?
No, ma'am.
Undigested food in Stacy's stomach provided critical information about when the attack happened.
They found a starchy material that was consistent with French fries, and we knew she had had French fries as part of her meal from McDonald's.
Did that help investigators narrow down the time frame of her murder?
Yes, it did. It usually takes between an hour to up to 3 hours to digest food, and we knew that she had eaten lunch at around 12 to 12:30.
Based on the evidence, it appeared that Stacy was killed the day she disappeared. In fact, police were confident Stacy's murder had happened between 1 p.m. and 3 that afternoon. While the details were important to the investigation, they wouldn't help detectives with the grim task that came next: informing Stacy's family that their search had ended in the worst way possible. Who broke the news to you that Stacy's body had been found?
It was my brother. He just looked over at me and told me, Stacy's dead, and I immediately just ran and cried. I was just so upset.
You were just 14 years old at the time. How did you cope with your sister's murder?
Just trying to be there for my family and my mother especially.
In his quiet moments alone, Chris was tormented by his final conversation with his sister. It had taken place at the bus stop on the morning of her murder. As he replayed that conversation over and over again, he wondered if there was something more he could have done to convince Stacy not to skip school that day. But in the end, his biggest regret was simply not telling her how much she meant to him.
I wish I would have given her a hug and told her I love her.
Chris will always treasure his memories of his beloved older sister. How would you describe Stacy's personality?
She was very big-hearted, very kind, very outgoing. She would help anybody that needed help.
As investigators listened to her family describe Stacy, they were forced to consider if someone had taken advantage of the teenager's compassionate nature to lead her into harm's way. Investigators retraced the teenager's last known whereabouts, in particular, her last lunch date with her boyfriend, Alfie. Police believed there was more to Alfie's story than he had told them. They brought him in for questioning and focused on every minute of his timeline during the 3-hour window in which Stacy was killed. Especially what happened after the couple finished eating lunch on Stacy's porch.
The last conversation they had was that she would meet him at his place of employment when he got off work at 3 o'clock.
Alfie told police he was worried when Stacy didn't arrive.
He waited for Stacy at 3 o'clock at the corner where she was supposed to meet him. 10 minutes went by and he thought, you know, where is she?
Alfie walked to Stacy's house and spoke with her brother Chris, who had just gotten home from school. How did he seem to you? Did he seem worried?
At first, he seemed just, hey, well, where's your sister at? And I said, she's not here. He looked like he was getting a little worried, so he asked me to borrow my bike. He was probably gone maybe 10 minutes, came back and said, I didn't find her. If she comes home, tell her I'm at work. Please to come see me. And I said, okay.
Alfie claimed that his search for Stacy made him late for his second job, which started at 3:30 p.m.
He ended up getting to work about 3:50.
Investigators felt the biggest problem with Alfie's story was that there was no way to confirm that Stacy had not actually gone to meet him that afternoon.
He admitted that she was to come see him.
Could Alfie's actions have been designed to cover up a deadly crime? Police investigating the murder of Stacy Hoffmaster were under intense pressure. The teenager had been found in a wooded area not far from her home. What was the reaction of the community to Stacy's murder?
The community was appalled. They wanted answers and they wanted them quick. People were alarmed.
Everybody was upset. They always just wondered, are they ever gonna find him? How do you just do something like that and get away with it?
Stacy had been killed within hours of when she and her boyfriend Alfie had their last lunch together. And now, all of Alfie's actions during the time she was missing were being viewed in a different light. Investigators wondered if there was a reason he had spent weeks trying to convince them that Stacy was still alive.
He kept reporting sightings to the police, and they were having a very hard time confirming these sightings. He was putting up signs everywhere, and they didn't know if he was sort of sending them on wild goose chases. It created suspicion.
But perhaps the most troubling concerns were raised by those closest to Stacy. Did you ever suspect that Alfie could have had something to do with Stacy's murder?
Absolutely, yeah, I did. I had thoughts that it could have been him.
Friends painted a portrait of a jealous boyfriend who constantly questioned Stacy about other men. What did Stacy's friends have to say about her relationship with Alfie?
The reports were coming in from Stacy's friends that she and Alfie were going through a hard time. They were arguing a lot.
Did investigators think an argument could have resulted in murder?
Yes, ma'am. The fact that he admitted that she was to come see him when he got off of work, the reports that they had been having some problems at the time, all of those things combined just raised a possible motive with investigators.
Still, in the face of intense questioning, Alfie repeatedly denied any involvement in the crime and stuck to a story about what he had done that day. Investigators asked him to take a polygraph. What were the results?
There were signs of deception in his polygraph.
Was he the prime suspect in her murder?
Absolutely.
When police turned up the pressure even further, Alfie stopped cooperating.
They then got a search warrant and took his DNA. After his DNA was taken, he lawyered up.
Detectives knew Alfie had an intimate relationship with Stacy, which meant a DNA match with the evidence might not seal their case. So they continued to work hard to find a crack in his timeline. What were the unanswered questions?
From the time he left work at 3 o'clock till the time he punched in at his second place of employment, there were a lot of gaps in his time that needed to be accounted for.
Alfie eventually arrived at his second job at 3:50. That left a 50-minute window of time unaccounted for. Was it enough to have committed the heinous crime? Police carefully retraced every element of Alfie's alibi, verifying each step he claimed to have taken, and reached a stunning conclusion.
With the routes that he provided us, that left him less than 4 minutes that he could have had the opportunity to get to the woods, commit the crime, and still make it back to his place of employment.
And any doubts that Alfie could have been responsible for Stacy's murder were removed when the crime lab returned its report. Did Alfie's DNA match the biological evidence recovered from the crime scene?
No, it didn't.
Could you rule him out as a potential suspect?
Yes, we could rule him out.
With Alfie cleared, the investigation was back to square one. Detectives returned to the crime scene. And it was a second, more comprehensive search of the area where Stacy's body had been found that revealed critical new evidence.
They realized that there was a campsite less than a half a football field from there.
Investigators noticed an abandoned tent held together with some very unusual materials.
The same type of ropes and nails hanging that matched what Stacy.
Hi, I'm Paula Zahn, and tonight we're on the case in Spokane, Washington. The picturesque city, known for its natural beauty, became the unlikely setting for an ugly homicide investigation following a terrifying attack on a 12-year-old girl. The murder of Marcy Bellis sent a ripple of fear across the community and marked the beginning of a decades-long quest for justice. August 5th, 1985. It was a bright summer morning in Spokane, Washington, when the caretaker of a tow yard made a gut-wrenching discovery.
He found the body of a young woman under a boom truck in his yard.
Was it obvious to him that she had been murdered?
It was very clear that she had been killed. He called police right away.
Spokane police raced to the scene and were stunned by what they saw. Police were dispatched to a gruesome crime scene. What did they discover?
Patrol officers found a young girl. Her dress had been cut off of her. She had been very violently assaulted with a knife, stabbed multiple times.
The young victim's lilac-colored dress was in tatters, and one of her rubber jelly shoes was found near her battered body. How severe were her wounds?
The wounds were what I would describe as overkill, in excess of 25 stab wounds to both the front and back of her torso.
They were extreme. Slashed throat and stab wounds to the head and temple.
What was the official cause of death?
The official cause was bleeding to death from the stab wounds.
Did it appear as though the victim had any chance to defend herself?
No. She was overpowered and overwhelmed very quickly.
As investigators carefully processed the crime scene, more critical evidence was found. It told a grim story of how the attack unfolded.
At the scene, investigators found a boot print in the dirt, tire tracks leaving the area, and an empty knife sheath laying near the body.
Were they able to find the knife?
The knife was never found.
The sheath belonged to a very specific model of double-sided dagger. And during the autopsy, the forensic pathologist determined that the injuries were consistent with a double-edged knife.
Was there any evidence of a sexual assault?
Yes, evidence was collected that showed the presence of semen.
The biological evidence helped confirm what investigators already suspected. A crime scene often speaks to investigators. What did the brutal violence tell them happened here?
My theory was that the suspect began trying to be romantic with the victim. The victim resisted that overture and tried to get away. The suspect attacked her to gain control of her, and during that attack, killed her.
Investigators pieced together more evidence. The tire tracks and several missing items belonging to the victim indicated that the assault likely began inside a car and then spilled out into the tow yard.
The second jelly shoe was never found. She was wearing earrings, and one earring was missing. I believe that those were probably left inside the car.
Police expanded their theory of the crime based on the discovery of blood in different areas of the tow yard. It appeared the victim had escaped from the car, was caught, and then stabbed.
They found a large blood pool, and that's where the knife sheath was found. That's when the knife was taken from its sheath to be used against her.
The young girl was then left to die where her body had been found.
It was clear that she had been dragged about 30 feet to her final location under the boom truck.
Police hoped that physical evidence might lead them to a suspect. Were the tire tracks useful?
No, and there was some possible boot print. None of those things actually panned out for the investigators.
They initially thought that they had a bloody handprint on a Pinto next where she was found. Later, it turned out that that handprint was actually in grease. Nobody was ever able to match that handprint to anything.
But the sheer violence of the crime did provide investigators with some insight into the type of suspect they might be looking for. In your mind, what did the MO at the crime scene tell you about who the killer was?
The heinous and terrible injuries really pointed to somebody that had kind of lost control during the time of the homicide. The frenetic overkill of the stab wounds and then cutting her throat on top of that. That kind of just pointed us in the direction of maybe somebody younger.
But who could have been angry enough to sexually assault and kill a child? The first step in answering that question required police to identify the young victim. There had been no purse or wallet found at the scene. But officers had something almost as critical: the details of a distraught mother's missing persons report. She told officers when her daughter was last seen, she had been wearing a brand new lilac dress and jelly shoes.
Investigators at the crime scene noted the clothing that the victim had on and that it exactly matched the clothing that Marcy Velez was reported to be wearing.
How old was she?
Marcy was 12 years old at that time.
The obvious connection sent investigators on a grim journey to ask the mother of a missing child if the young girl they had just found murdered was actually her precious daughter. Police in Spokane, Washington were on their way to the home of 12-year-old Marcy Velez. They believed the missing sixth grader had been the victim of a brutal attack. Marcy's older sister, Bia, will never forget the moment when police arrived to ask her family if they could identify the little girl in the disturbing crime scene photos. How did you find out your little sister had been murdered?
Detectives came to the door. They showed the pictures. We verified that that was indeed Marcy. I was definitely in shock.
And what made it even more difficult for Bia and her three other sisters were the regrets they shared over how Marcy had gone missing in the first place. The story began with a dispute over money and the new dress Marcy had just bought that day. When was the last time you saw Marcy?
The last time I saw Marcy, she was arguing. She owed one of our other sisters some money and had earned some money from babysitting. She had spent it on a dress.
Marcy had expected her sisters to compliment her on how beautiful the dress was. She was crushed when they lashed out at her instead. How important do you think this lilac dress was to her?
It was very important. Our lifestyle did not allow for a lot of things. So to have a new dress was a really big deal. She was proud of herself for earning the money.
Marcy was so crestfallen that right after that fight, she bolted out of the house in tears.
I think she felt guilty more than anything, and that's the last I saw her.
Police asked for a detailed timeline of Marcy's last known movements. When was Marcy last seen by her mother?
That was Saturday, August 3rd, 1985.
Where did her mother believe she was going after she left the house?
Her mother thought that she was going to her best friend's house, which was not too far away.
Following the family feud, Marcy had gone to Laura's house.
She didn't want to go home, and my mom and me asked her to just stay the night, and she said no. And at that time, it was, dusk.
It was late that evening when Marcy's family discovered that she wasn't at Laura's house. They spent a sleep race.
She was just fun-loving. She was genuine. Just a true, genuine person.
She was very willing to believe the best in people and always willing to help.
Could you think of anyone who would have wanted to hurt Marcy?
No. Oh, God, no.
But when police asked that same question of Marcy's mother, she had a much different answer. Marcy had confided in her that she had recently been the victim of a sexual assault by someone she considered a friend. Detectives investigating the murder of Marcy Velez suddenly had their first suspect. Spokane police were on the hunt for a savage killer. And while the sisters of 12-year-old Marcy Velez couldn't think of anyone who would have had a reason to hurt Marcy, her mother did. She said that her daughter had recently shared a disturbing story with her about being attacked by a teenager named Jamie. Who was Jamie, and how did Marcy know him?
Jamie was an individual that Marcy had met through her sisters. She had, at one point, just prior to her death, gone to ride around in a car with them, and at some point, there was a sexual assault. She told her mom about it. They filed a report with the police department in the city.
Marcy had tearfully asked her parents to keep the details of the assault from her older siblings. Marcy grew up with 3 older sisters. How do you think that affected her comfort level with hanging out with older kids?
A lot. She was always trying to be one of the older kids. She wanted to be like the older sisters.
Do you think that made her naive?
Yes. She wasn't well aware of all the evils out there. She hadn't seen what some of us older girls had seen. She was naive.
And now police wondered if Marcy's innocence had allowed her to be targeted for murder by an older boy trying to silence the only witness who could testify against him in a sexual assault case.
That report was transferred to the sheriff's office and was an investigation that was pending at the time of her death.
Based on the fact that Marcy's family had filed a police report about the sexual assault, did investigators believe that would have provided a motive for Jamie to murder her?
Yes, there was some information that was passed along to the investigators that Jamie had threatened Marcy for filing the report.
That made Jamie angry, and he told some people that he wanted to get even with her.
Police theorized that Jamie could have found Marcy walking alone that night and convinced her to get into his car to talk about the allegations. Investigators quickly located the older boy for questioning. What did he have to say for himself?
He admitted to having sexual relations with Marcy, but he claimed it was not a rape.
He tried to paint it as consensual sexual intercourse.
And Jamie denied having anything to do with Marcy's murder. Still, as police pressed Jamie about their suspicions, the teenager had a hard time with the details of his account.
His story tended to vary as to what actually happened, but he claimed that he had not seen Marcy.
Did he have an alibi?
He said that he was at his grandmother's house at the time of Marcy's death.
Even after relatives verified Jamie's alibi, investigators were skeptical. But the case against him remained entirely circumstantial. Was there any evidence linking Jamie to Marcy's murder?
Nothing directly, nothing directly.
Investigators were frustrated. but continued to focus on how and where Marcy had crossed paths with her killer. That meant going through her last known movements with a fine-tooth comb. And it was her best friend Laura who provided a critical detail. She said that just after Marcy's argument with her sisters, they had an encounter with two boys.
We stopped at Liberty Park, and that's where we talked to the two boys.
Laura said she never got a good look at either boy, but Marcy had known one of them. She used the name Brett. Did it seem like a friendly encounter?
Yes. She seemed to know the one boy.
And during the conversation, Brett asked Marcy if she wanted to meet up later to go to a party.
They invited her to meet them under a bridge in downtown.
A sweet and beloved senior.
Margaret liked being out. She liked being around people.
She was very friendly, very outgoing.
Is viciously murdered in her own home.
Oh my Lord, it's her. And I pretty much lost it.
I actually thought I was going to get sick.
To be snuffed out in such a way is just horrific.
Police uncover a trail of suspects.
How would he know the information unless he was in the crime scene?
Having people know how she was found and even what she was wearing is very suspicious.
It just wasn't adding up. He was not being honest and something else was going on.
Before a disturbing discovery.
He was just photographing her in her own home.
Points to a deranged killer nobody saw coming.
I don't think anyone in law enforcement could have had any inkling of the outcome of this case.
This is sick. This is not a normal murder.
This wasn't a horror movie. This was actually happening.
Wadsworth, Ohio, a haven for families just outside Akron.
Wadsworth, a very quiet town. It's very community-oriented.
It's a great family community. It's very common for people not even to lock their doors because there's never a lot of crime that occurs right around in there.
On a Monday morning, April 9th, 2018, the peace is interrupted when police receive a call from a worried citizen.
Wadsworth Police.
Yes, this is Howard Leisure. My aunt lives on Portage Street. A friend of ours stopped over there yesterday to check on her, and she was nowhere to be found.
Okay.
He says papers were on the porch for the last 3 days.
What's her name?
Margaret Douglas.
Initially, the police department was contacted about Margaret being missing from her home.
We don't know where she's at. She's 98 years old.
Did she live there by herself?
She lives there by herself, yes. And she never locks her house.
So our initial response was to look for Margaret to see if she had fallen inside her home and needed help. Patrol officers walked through it, yelling for her to see if she would answer.
We continued to canvass the neighborhood, and we did not locate her.
If her close friends, she's not with them, something's wrong.
We contacted area hospitals and looked in any possible place that she could be.
Margaret was just basically missing.
That evening, Howard and his wife, Cindy, head to Margaret's home to help police with the search.
They asked if we could come down and meet them at the house.
Howard and Cindy started to look for some items common for Margaret to have taken with her when she left. There were specific shoes that she would wear. They were looking for a little red wallet that she carried her money and her credit cards in when she left the home.
So Howard went to look in that front closet.
The clothes had dropped or slipped down that was piled in the top of the closet.
He said, "Oh, I found her shoe." He tried to pull the shoe out.
And I touched it, and it felt cold and clammy.
The shoe was still attached to Margaret, who was in the closet.
And I thought, oh my Lord, it's her. And I pretty much lost it, something I'll never forget. I'm sorry. But to find her like that.
It was a terrible shock, especially for her nephew Howard, and I just remember the look on his face.
I actually thought I was going to get sick. I think we were just so appalled and shocked that someone would kill her.
What motive could there be to kill a 98-year-old woman? What could she have done to anybody that would have resulted in that?
Margaret's home is declared a crime scene, and homicide detectives arrive.
Margaret was positioned with her head down in the corner and her backside kind of up in the air. Her underpants were torn inside the closet there. Her nightgown was all unsnapped, and her bra was pulled up. I immediately thought that there was a sexual element to the crime. There was a lot of trauma to Margaret's neck region. Somebody was able to strangle her, and my assumption was manually due to the lack of any ligature marks.
Looking at the condition of Margaret's body, rigor came and gone. You could look at the different lividity and the pulling of the blood inside the body to see it appeared she had been there for a few days.
As the forensics team gathers DNA and fingerprints, detectives search the house for further evidence.
Her wallet was not located, so that gave us an indication that maybe this was a burglary and they had made off with just the wallet. Margaret didn't always lock her doors, so we weren't surprised when we didn't find forced entry into her home.
Investigators find their first clue outside the home.
I observed a plastic food service glove on the back side of the house and collected the glove just in case that it was involved.
There was not a lot of physical evidence at the crime scene. Besides the glove, the missing wallet was something, but nothing that would direct us in a certain way.
Who would attack and kill a 98-year-old woman in her own home? As they set out for answers, detectives turn to Howard and Cindy to learn more about Margaret.
The best thing to do is to get to know your victim as best you can.
Born in Akron, Ohio in 1919, Margaret was known as a woman of strong character with a fiercely independent streak.
She knew what she wanted, and she wasn't afraid to go after what she wanted to get.
Margaret often told us about her days working at the O'Neills in downtown Akron. She liked being out, she liked being around people.
She was very friendly, very outgoing.
Margaret had very strong opinions, and she was certainly not afraid to tell you what her opinion was.
She was a pretty independent woman, let's put it that way.
After World War II, Margaret married the love of her life, Army veteran Donald Douglas.
If I saw Margaret, I saw Donald, her husband. They were made for each other. They just complemented each other.
The couple moved into the house that Margaret would live in for the rest of her life.
I think Margaret might have lived in that neighborhood close to 70 years.
It was Margaret and Donald's choice not to have any children, and they seemed extremely happy together.
They liked to travel together. They went to ball games. They enjoyed going to the Indians game.
When Donald passed away in the year 2000, Margaret chose to remain in her house, surrounded by friends and caring neighbors.
Margaret was a pretty good friend with the neighbors, David and his wife.
There was another neighbor across the street. Her name was Jan. They just sort of kept an eye on Margaret.
She knew all the kids in the neighborhood. But as she got older, she's got more restricted to the house. And that's when me and my wife stepped in at that point and started taking her shopping and doing things for her that is needed.
Margaret loved the fact that she was 98 years old, and she wanted to be 100. She truly loved life.
For someone to have lived such a wonderful, vibrant life, only to be snuffed out in such a way is just horrific. I have a grandmother that's similar in age. It's just very hit close to home.
The investigators were under a tremendous amount of pressure. Every one of them took it very personally, and I think every one of them wanted to find justice very quickly for the family.
At the onset, we had no clue. There was no direction.
Maybe it's financial. Maybe it was a relationship issue. Maybe it was an argument that went too far and something happened that they didn't expect. But at that stage in the investigation, you just don't know.
We need to start somewhere, so we start closest to her.
So that would include looking at Howard and Cindy.
We definitely leave everyone on the list until we can exclusively rule them out and have that be a certainty and not just a feeling.
Coming up, is Margaret's killer hiding in plain sight?
He knew details of where Margaret was found and in what state she was found.
He's come back to the scene of a crime.
Detectives unearth dark secrets.
We found a journal about a desire to kill people.
He was videotaping her while she slept, stalking his victim like an animal stalks its prey.
Leading to a killer no one saw coming.
This is somebody that's ultimately going to be a serial killer if he's not caught.
Police are investigating the murder of 98-year-old Margaret Douglas, whose body was discovered stuffed in a closet in her own home.
I just can't imagine a 98-year-old woman being that terrified and not knowing what to do. It's definitely one of the most traumatic things I've ever had to experience in my years with the Wadsworth Police Department.
Detectives begin by interviewing those closest to Margaret, her nephew Howard, and his wife Cindy.
We fingerprint and get DNA from Cindy and Howard to show whether their fingerprints or DNA were on something that it should not have been on. We did subpoenas for phone records and also location data, GPS data, so we could tell their whereabouts during the time in question. Cindy and Howard lived approximately 30 or 40-minute drive away, but they would come into town a couple times a month to do her grocery shopping.
She always paid with cash. We swung down, went to the bank, she threw $200 out to go shopping with.
Police ask Howard about Margaret's finances. Was there anyone who stood to gain from her death?
Margaret was really in charge of her own finances. We did look into those accounts and check for activity. We were never able to locate any activity that was out of the normal.
Does she have a power of attorney or a will or anything then?
No. We've been telling her she needs a will, she needs this. She would never take the time to do it.
There was nobody that we could find that would have any financial gain from her death.
Could Howard or Cindy think of anyone who might wish to harm Margaret?
Any problems with her? Did she want to argue with people or anything like that? Nothing?
No, sweet old lady.
And nobody else, she didn't, have any problems with anybody that...
Not that I know. She was... Margaret often knew. That's why it's so just horrible.
Detectives ask about others in close contact with Margaret. According to Howard and Cindy, the closest is Margaret's former neighbor, David Klinkenbeard.
Cindy and Howard did keep in contact with David, who was Margaret's main caregiver. David would come and check on her a couple of times a week just to see if she was okay and if she needed anything.
David has the most contact with her.
Yeah, he'd go every week, take her trash out, and then he'd take the can back in the next day, so.
After interviewing Howard and Cindy, detectives try to contact David, but he's not answering their calls.
There was some concern not being able to reach David, and that was troubling. We didn't have any other suspects. It made us wonder what was going on.
As detectives try to track David down, patrol officers continue to canvass Margaret's neighbors for information.
During the canvass, we did learn that there had been some vehicles in the neighborhood that had been rifled through, and small items were taken out, like change and things like that.
Is this somebody that was up by Margaret's house and found a crime of opportunity because it's somebody that they can maybe figure out lives alone?
As the canvass continues, officers notice someone watching the activity around Margaret's house.
I noticed a man outside smoking a cigarette, so I went out to make contact with him. This person ended up being David Klinkenbeard. He said that he used to live next door to Margaret. He kind of wanted to know what was going on.
He said he was essentially canvassing the neighborhood looking for anything that was suspicious.
David did strike me as odd at first. It was concerning to me that he was standing out there trying to determine what exactly we had found.
As David continues to talk, police grow increasingly suspicious.
He was kind of making comments about information that seemed strange that he would know about.
He knew details of where Margaret was found and in what state she was found. Having people know how she was found and even what she was wearing is very suspicious. You don't know where someone has gotten their information. Were they there? Were they involved in the murder?
With a growing list of questions about David, officers approach Margaret's neighbors for answers.
One of the neighbors had mentioned how they had seen David driving through the neighborhood, but didn't stop, just kind of drove through. So they thought that was kind of strange. Maybe he's coming back to the scene of a crime, whether he's driving back by because he knows what he did and he's having remorse, or maybe trying to get back inside there to get her body out of there and get rid of it, or to look to see if he left anything behind.
David told some of the neighbors that his fingerprints would be all over the house and he would have to get his fingerprints taken, which is not something that people usually say or think.
The next day, David's appearance in local news coverage of the murder raises further alarm bells.
I turned on the news and there he is on TV, talking to the reporters, putting himself out there.
Was this a guilty man's ploy to hide in plain sight?
That seemed out of sorts to us. Generally, when people are grieving a loss, their instinct is not to cooperate with the media, but David seemed very willing to speak with them.
All of these things added together are possible indicators of someone who is purposely trying to insert themselves in the investigation because they're involved in this investigation.
Could David have possibly been involved in Margaret's murder?
At that point, we had some questions about his actions and his knowledge of how Margaret was found.
He definitely became a main point of interest.
On April 11th, 2 days after finding Margaret's body in her own home, police bring her former neighbor, David Klinkenbeard, in for questioning.
David told us that he last saw Margaret when he was helping her with her trash can on Wednesday.
You didn't come by on Thursday or Friday, not till Sunday.
No, not till Sunday.
On Sunday, he had gone over to the house and he didn't locate her. He had some concerns that maybe she was upstairs in a state of undress and he didn't want to go up there himself. So he contacted Jan across the street.
And that's when you had Jan come over in case she was upstairs and not decent.
Yeah, Jan went up there, she wasn't up there, and then we looked in the closet up there.
Okay, your friend's missing. That'd be the last thing in your mind, whether they're dressed or not. You would go and look for them throughout the entire house, not go get somebody else.
As the interview continues, David's answers only raise further suspicion.
She likes to look nice, and she was a pretty woman.
Yeah.
When she was younger, she was a redhead.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was really, back then, she was really kind of, not thin then, but, you know, I was surprised because she looked back then.
Some of the comments that he made about Margaret, in particular her physical appearance when she was younger, she had just been murdered, and here he is describing her figure and her body type in an interview.
The detective asked David about the calls he made when he couldn't find Margaret.
Oh, I want to use my cell phone to call Howard. I got his number on my phone.
Do you have your phone with you?
Yeah.
Would you mind if I had my computer guy just go through and write down the dates of your calls?
He said he must have left it at home and didn't have it on his person.
It seems strange because, you know, in this day and age, nobody goes anywhere without their cell phone. Their cell phone is always on them.
Investigators must now subpoena David's cell phone records. At the same time, they receive a forensics report from the crime scene.
DNA belonging to Margaret was found on the glove that was discovered outside of Margaret's house.
We believe that the suspect's DNA was on the inside of the glove.
Would you mind if I was able to get a sample of your DNA? We know you're supposed to be in the house. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Detectives send David's DNA to compare against that found inside the glove. While they wait for the results, they check David's cell phone data to verify his alibi.
We were able to go through his day-to-day life and see that he likely was not involved, but there was no concrete evidence that we were able to bring to light.
Unlike the phone records, the DNA findings are conclusive. David is not Margaret's killer.
David ended up being, in the end of all this thing, just a friend of hers that was not involved at all.
Sometimes he would say things that didn't really have an explanation. It just took the time and the effort to understand his involvement, and there was reasonable explanation for all of the things that we had concerns about. He just really cared about Margaret and really had concern that he would have an answer as to what happened.
We had to look at David as probably our #1 interest because obviously his strange comments in the beginning about his DNA and fingerprints, plus he's the one that saw her on a regular basis.
Up until that point where you reach a crossroads, you really do have to look at every tiny detail, every possibility.
Detectives turn their attention to the autopsy report, which paints a terrifying picture of Margaret's last moments.
The medical examiner's report on Margaret showed what kind of force was used to kill her in the end. She had contusions to her head, to her face. She had a fracture to her orbital socket. She had a fracture to her C7 vertebrae in her neck that showed there was a compression there, which broke her neck.
Margaret was not a frail woman. Not just anyone would be able to manually strangle her.
While the autopsy finds no direct evidence of sexual assault, officers continue to suspect otherwise.
Why would her underwear be ripped off of her? They weren't like pulled off, they were torn.
There were other bodily fluids that were mixed in with the swabs from Margaret's body.
The fact that someone took Margaret in such a horrific manner was a very difficult thing to handle.
As homicide detectives regroup to search for new leads, patrol officers alert them to an unusual crime reported in the early morning hours of April 8th, the day before Margaret's body is discovered.
There was a report of a carjacking very near the scene of Margaret Douglas's home. In a community like Wadsworth, we don't have carjackings. That's not a normal call for us.
They happened in such time close to one another that we had to wonder if they were related.
The carjacking victim is a local man named Paul Shalott.
Paul had reported he was driving along and he happened to notice a 19, 20-year-old man limping, like having trouble walking up the street.
Paul had reported to us that he was just being a good Samaritan and picking somebody up that he thought to be injured.
So as he went out to help him, he said the gentleman just slid into the driver's seat and then locked the doors, wouldn't let him in, and took off with his car.
Officers grow suspicious when they quickly locate Paul's car near the site of the carjacking.
The car was found very quickly, and it was found right there in the same area it was taken.
Literally, like, not even a block away from where he had picked this gentleman up, supposedly, and lost his car.
This happened at a building that had cameras on the outside, so we wanted to kind of investigate Paul's story because it just didn't seem quite right. You could see on the video that Paul had been with what appeared to be a young man. The young man was not limping. He did not seem to be injured in any way.
Paul's initial report did not match anything that video said. It just wasn't adding up. He was not being honest and something else was going on.
Why had Paul lied to police? And who was the young man seen in security footage? Had one of them gone on to do something unthinkable?
We had the carjacking, and then we had Margaret's disappearance. It just started making me think a little bit. Could this be the guy that could be involved?
Police investigating the murder of 98-year-old Margaret Douglas have a potential new lead after learning of an alleged carjacking in her quiet neighborhood.
Somebody that's willing to perpetrate a crime such as a carjacking makes you really wonder, is this related to a murder that's just happened a couple blocks away?
But when security video proves the victim, Paul Shalott, has lied to police, detectives demand answers.
When I interviewed Paul to get the whole story, he was very nervous. And then he finally started telling us the truth about how he came to be in that area and what really happened. He was on an app trying to meet somebody, and he did come across somebody. He said he worked for a church, and he didn't want them to find out that he's using a site to try to meet up with young men. He didn't want to admit it right away, but they started getting involved sexually in the car. The male subject he picked up, I guess, started getting upset that things weren't going his way.
The young man that he met up with just kind of snapped and took the car, not what Paul had expected when he met this person online.
With Paul finally being honest, detectives change course and ask if he knows anything about the murder of Margaret Douglas.
He was aware of what had happened and that she was a victim of a homicide. But Paul did not know Margaret at all.
He had no ties to her and real no ties even in that neighborhood. He was just there basically to meet up with somebody that night. Then I started thinking, well, now we need to know who was driving that car, who carjacked him.
Paul was asked for the account information for the app that he used to meet this person on.
He said he couldn't remember the email he used or the password he used to get in there.
Paul was embarrassed about what he had let happen and the fact that he was involved with a young man. He had deleted everything from his phone that was relative to that. We weren't able to recover any of that information.
So we had no way of proving or figuring out who it was that he may have met up with that night.
After hitting another dead lead, frustrated investigators know that public fear is only growing.
There was definitely some fear. There were people that would normally stroll down the street, walk their dogs, let their kids play outside unsupervised, and things like that weren't happening after Margaret's discovery.
And the emotions for everybody were really high and heightened. They're all locking their doors now, and they're really watching for everything. So it was definitely a shock to all of them.
With the community on edge, Margaret's family continues to struggle with their loss.
The hardest part going through all this is the time-consuming and the worrying and waiting for the outcome. You're not sure what's going to happen.
That was hard. You know, none of us are patient, and we all want to know what happened here, why someone would do this.
The reason you're doing what you're doing is for the victim. You want somebody to be held responsible for what they've done.
Believing that the carjacker may be a serial criminal, police take a closer look at the petty crimes reported around Margaret's neighborhood.
The crimes all took place in just a few block area.
Is there somebody in this neighborhood that's committing a whole bunch of crimes for some reason, because we weren't seeing those crimes spreading out throughout the city like we typically would?
You have to wonder if the person who's committing these petty crimes has escalated to commit something more horrific.
On the night of April 13th, 4 days after the discovery of Margaret's body, police received several calls about two young men.
We had received a lot of different calls where people had seen two male subjects running around, creating mischief, doing things at the park, doing things at the church, and in cars.
A couple of young males were taking some type of device that had wheels on the bottom and hanging out in one of the parking lots.
That same night, police respond to a call that changes everything.
It was reported to us that there had been a break-in to a trailer that was at a construction site.
When officers investigate, they get a huge break.
Someone had left their cell phone behind at the trailer.
Does the phone belong to the person responsible for the neighborhood crime spree, including Margaret's murder? Investigators used forensic software to unlock the phone.
The phone came back to a subject that we had been known in our area for different car break-ins and little thefts from cars that happened in our city, and especially over in that area.
He was identified by one of our officers as Zach Franz. Zach was known to us, and he did have a troubled past. He had been in some more serious trouble, and we were all familiar with him. At this point, we thought that we really needed to bring Zach in and talk to him about what he had been doing that night. Zach was found sleeping in his car at the high school in the parking lot.
As officers bring Zach into the station for an interview, something immediately catches their attention.
Zach had some scratches on his legs, which made me wonder where those came from.
Are they defensive wounds from somebody fighting back against you and scratching you that way? Could they be from something simple, explainable, or evidence into what we were looking into with regards to Margaret Douglas?
Police investigating the murder of Margaret Douglas have connected local teen Zach Thronson to a spate of crimes near her home.
With the carjacking, we know there was supposed to be a young male. Now we have Zach running around, committing these little crimes, all within the same area around the same time frame.
His phone was left behind at the trailer, so we knew for sure that he was involved in the crimes that were all seemingly tied together.
Detectives cut to the chase and ask Zach if he killed Margaret Douglas.
Zach, he owned up for the little things he did, but he denied any knowledge of it or being involved at all.
Detectives steer the interview to the identity of the teen seen with Zach in security footage.
He said that he was out with his friend Gavin Ramsey and that everything that had happened was all Gavin's idea. Gavin had been the one that was trying to break into the trailer and that he was just standing by and watching it happen, just a presence during the time that Gavin was committing all the other petty crimes. Zach was definitely distancing himself, so there was some concern that he wasn't being honest about everything that they had done.
For the moment, police decide not to charge Zach until they interview his friend, Gavin Ramsey.
Gavin had been in trouble before, and his mom had dealt with that. She was going to hold him accountable for the things he had done. We talked about the trailer, and I just let him know that we knew he was there because Zach had told us that he was there. Property-type crimes and less serious crimes is what we talked about at first.
That's just to see, is he going to own up to that? And then we'd continue from there into something more serious.
You guys didn't take anything? Did you rummage through glove boxes or anything?
Maybe like 50 times, but other than that, seriously nothing.
He admitted to all of them. He would rifle through cars and take things that weren't of a lot of value, just to take things.
Gavin told us during the interview, he does it for a rush, so it wasn't about money or anything.
I think the reason that he was so willing to admit to these lesser offenses is to kind of distance himself and clear his name from anything else I might want to talk to him about.
Now, detectives turn their questions to more serious crimes.
We had a carjacking.
Oh my God.
And the suspect is a young white male with a nice complexion and blue eyes. Is that you?
Gavin's demeanor changed substantially when I started to ask him about the carjacking.
It's upset me so much. Is there something else you need to tell us?
You've already gotten yourself in trouble, so.
I know, and I don't need I don't know what to say.
Before answering further questions, Gavin asks to speak with a detective alone.
I don't think you two would actually be for a second. What's that? You two actually. So I didn't talk to her. Yeah.
Okay with you?
Sure.
So when his mom stepped out,
The carjacking, it was me, I'm gonna be honest about it, but the way that he explained it, that guy, that's not right.
he openly admitted that he was the one who did the carjacking. He didn't really want to talk about the sexual part of what happened in there.
You guys didn't talk about what kind of sex you were gonna have, or?
No, I don't know, it's not something I'm interested in, just the act of him getting the payback, I guess, I don't know, that's, like, it's karma, really. Like, if you're gonna do that, then I'm gonna rob you.
Gavin denies that he was truly interested in meeting up with Paul for any reason other than to catfish him or to teach him a lesson.
This is a kid that's admitting to going around breaking into cars, and it's not for theft, it's for a rush, so we know he's after the adrenaline. What else could he have possibly have done?
With Gavin admitting to the carjacking, the interview turns to questions about Margaret Douglas.
I specifically asked him if he had murdered Margaret, and he denied it.
There's no reason that we would find her DNA inside her house because we swabbed the hell out of that house.
You shouldn't.
I mean, if you've never been in there, then obviously you wouldn't. But, I mean, you name it. We swabbed it, we took it. I'm sure you know we were there all night.
Yeah.
He was hiding something. There was more to be said. I didn't feel that this avenue had been exhausted with him. This was something that we probably needed to revisit, maybe from another direction.
For now, detectives allow Gavin to leave with his mother.
At this point, we have nothing other than the petty crimes, which are handled through juvenile court, so we wouldn't actually take him into custody to hold him.
But they have one request for Gavin's mother.
I let her know that we had concerns and that I would like to look at his phone. I was expecting to find information about how maybe Gavin was victimized.
Instead, what officers find on Gavin's phone changes everything.
Officer Cooper discovered Google-type searches, murder in Wadsworth, Margaret Douglas investigation, Wadsworth PD reports on homicide investigation.
Then, detectives find something they never would have imagined.
There were actually photos and videos of Margaret Douglas.
Timestamps show that the images were recorded in the early morning hours of Friday, April 6th.
She obviously didn't know he was there, and he was just photographing her from a vantage point in her own home. There was clearly a point in time where she realized that someone was in her home and was startled.
Nothing can prepare investigators for what they see next.
I was absolutely shocked that a child could imagine doing this to another human being. This wasn't a horror movie. This was actually happening.
Detectives investigating the murder of 98-year-old Margaret Douglas have found disturbing evidence on a phone belonging to 17-year-old Gavin Ramsey.
The first thought in my mind was, he knows we're going to discover this. And I could just imagine him fleeing.
Police moved quickly to take Gavin into custody.
Once we picked him up, I briefly told his mom that we had discovered evidence on his phone and that we were going to take him back to the police department. It was definitely not the easiest interview that I had ever done.
I came up onto the porch, and I didn't even know what I was going to do. I don't know, I probably going into the house. It's like the biggest adrenaline rush I could get. So then I tried the doorknob, and that just happened to be unlocked.
He was videotaping her while she slept, stalking his victim like an animal stalks its prey.
So how long do you think you were in the house before you woke her up?
I don't know, probably like 10, 15 minutes.
You could see in some of the photos the obvious horror on her face as to what was happening.
And then from the time you woke her up to the time you ended up on top of her, choking her, how long did that whole part take?
Oh, it's probably like 5 minutes.
He had used both hands to squeeze her neck and push her neck back against the floor, strangling her. He said that once he realized the gravity of what he was doing, it was too late, that she was already gone.
For officers, the most disturbing questions involve what Gavin did after killing Margaret.
When I saw him, it was just like, this is sick. This is not a normal murder.
The sexual nature of his actions was kind of a topic that he was not willing to talk about.
He degraded her by using her for sexual things and videotaping and taking pictures. He'd actually been in there with her for a while.
And then I checked my phone, and it said it was like 4 something, and I knew my mom had to get up at 5 for work.
So he takes the body, finds the closet, as he has to get home. He throws in there to hide her because I don't want anybody to find her. I don't want anybody to know it's me.
But was Margaret simply a random victim of Gavin's need for a rush? Or had he known her better than he'd initially let on?
Gavin lived very close to Margaret Douglas, right around the corner from her house.
Gavin had actually been to her house before, asking her about maybe cutting her grass, raking leaves, or even, shoveling snow. He was out looking for little odd jobs around the neighborhood.
The thought in the back of my mind was that Gavin had observed Margaret regularly and actually thought about the things that he would like to do and that she would make a good victim.
Police arrest Gavin Ramsey for the murder of Margaret Douglas and get a search warrant for his bedroom.
We found gloves matching the same style and type of glove that was found at the scene.
In one of his drawers, I discovered Margaret's red wallet.
Detectives then make an even more disturbing find.
We also found a journal that had some writings about fantasies about murder. He had written almost like a book report on different serial killers. After reading those, there was no doubt in my mind that Gavin would kill again if he had the opportunity. This is something that he enjoys, that he finds pleasure in.
This is somebody that's ultimately going to be a serial killer if he's not caught.
Because of the heinous nature of the crime, the juvenile penal system is not equipped to deal with an individual such as Gavin Ramsey.
Gavin was ultimately charged as an adult with aggravated murder, 2 other counts of murder, burglary, and abuse of a corpse.
We requested that Mr. Ramsey receive the harshest penalty that the law would allow.
Found guilty on all charges, Gavin is sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder of Margaret Douglas.
When I watched Gavin Ramsey at the sentencing, I still felt in my mind that he doesn't understand the gravity of what he's done. There's still no remorse there.
You would like to think that the world is full of people like you and I, and don't want to think that of such a young person able to act out something that you would only see in a horror movie.
I was shocked to find out that it was a young person who was still in high school that would do something like this.
To murder somebody who's 98 years old, to think you could shove a body in that closet. I just can't even.
It absolutely made me think of my own grandma. I just could not imagine her living such a wonderful life and having it end in such a horrific way.
Despite the horror of Margaret's death, her family honors her memory by thinking of her remarkable life.
Margaret gave you an inspiration that you can still be 98 years old and be very functional, live in your own home, take care of yourself. She, to me, was just an inspiration.
She led a full life and could have been longer.
Margaret would want to be remembered as the person who took care of herself, cared about those around her, and was willing to do what she needed to do.
My aunt was Margaret Douglas, and she was a wonderful woman. She was a great woman.
A woman devoted to her town.
She was the deputy county treasurer. Away from the courthouse, you saw a different person. She loved to dance.
Her life snuffed out in a savage attack.
There was quite a bit of blood.
She had been beaten pretty severely.
She had to have been terrified. She struggled at the end of her life.
She had no enemies. Nobody had a clue who would do something like that.
Police investigate several troubling theories.
Is it a close friend that got into an argument with her?
There had been some shouting matches.
Maybe she interrupted a burglary or a theft.
After months of false leads and dead ends,
the town was on high alert.
A stunning discovery breaks open the case.
It added a new twist to the crime.
All of a sudden you realize, maybe I don't know all my neighbors.
And points to a murderer in their midst.
I was kind of speechless at first.
I thought, my gosh. I mean, you just can't believe it.
The tiny farming community of Colon, Nebraska is one of the smallest towns in America, with a population of just over 100 people.
Colon, Nebraska is a very laid-back community, very close-knit families there. I think that if you went there, you'd drive through and you go, oh, this is small.
Many people would leave their doors unlocked, their cars unlocked, keys left in the ignition, just a feel of safety, that there's no threat.
But then on June 30th, 2003, police receive a distressing call.
Around 6:42 in the evening, dispatch indicated to me that they had received a report of a possible suicide.
My friend, they ended up finding her body across the street in her garage, along with a gun.
He had called 911, and it was reported as a suicide. Once I arrived, the firemen on scene already were pointing me to a garage. I walked in and could see the body of a white female that was laying on the ground. There was quite a bit of blood, and there was disfigurement to the head and face area, so we could not recognize the victim. A black handgun was found near her head.
There is so much blood on the scene, investigators aren't able to determine the cause of death and need to wait for an autopsy to be sure.
The small black handgun didn't actually contain bullets, and we didn't find any shell casings in the area. The car had a smear on the driver's side, and then I did find that there was a smear of what appeared to be blood on the walk-in door that went out the side of the garage.
There was also what looked like blood spatter, where someone stepped in the pool of blood.
There was a footprint impression that was taken
that indicated that there was a second person there. This was a suspicious death.
There were DNA swabs taken on her body and of her clothing that she was wearing at the time. We noticed that her purse was located underneath her vehicle.
Was this just a botched burglary, or did the person have some other intention?
From the personal items in her purse, police identify the victim as 66-year-old Sharon Erickson.
Sharon was very well known. It was shocking to us as law enforcement to see somebody that was a fixture in the community being the victim in this case.
Born and raised in Nebraska's farm country, Sharon Erickson was a lifelong government worker.
Sharon worked across the hall from me. She was the deputy county treasurer. She was excellent, very honest. I would put her against anybody in the state of Nebraska for knowledge when it comes to the office of the treasurer. She would do anything for you. Gosh darn. When it came to the office or anything, she was always attendant and very, very helpful always.
In 1998, after 37 years of devoted service, Sharon retired.
Away from the courthouse, you saw a different person, more relaxed. She loved to dance, and if anyone wanted to dance, boom, she was on the dance floor. And boy, she was so good at dancing. I'm telling you what, boy, she could dance every dance until they'd shut the music off.
As a single woman, Sharon lived alone, but saw the people of Colon as her family.
People used to go to the bar and have coffee. Well, that one closed. Sharon came over and she says, I have a little front room in my house there. Would you come and remodel it and paint it for me? She had me fix that room up and gave the locals a key for coffee. Had a coffee pot in there. It was just somewhere where they could go. She didn't charge them. That's the type of person that you're talking about.
Police are at a loss when they realize Sharon was attacked just 50 feet away from the gathering spot she gifted to the town. Who could have wanted to kill her and why? Detectives expand their search for evidence to Sharon's home.
She lived in what used to be a grocery store and had converted to her house.
The other odd thing about Sharon's residence is that her garage was located across her house. And so to get to her car, she would have to walk out the front of her house and across Main Street.
What or who could have lured Sharon out of her home and to her death in the garage?
That we did find some damage to the back door that appeared to be consistent with some forced entry.
There was a cold chisel that was found next to the door that more than likely was used.
We also did find that the phone line had been cut.
There was at least some planning on the attack. Someone was obviously trying to prevent her from calling for help.
Inside, there was nothing out of place. When we started going room by room, we found that there was a holster for a small gun in her bedroom near the bed, and the gun was missing. That, along with her bed not being made and the back door having damage and being pried open, we started to have a picture in our minds that this may have occurred in the middle of the night.
Our assumption was that there was a burglary. She was alerted to the burglary because of noise coming from the person prying on the back door, that she got up out of bed, grabbed her gun, and went to investigate what was occurring before she was killed.
As investigators continue to process the scene, they are interrupted by volunteer firefighter and village postmaster Rick Hartman.
He was friends with Sharon. He actually was the one that found her body.
Mr. Hartman appeared to be a little more interested in the situation than some of the other firefighters that were there. Mr. Hartman had to be asked on several different occasions to stay behind the crime scene tape.
After it kept happening, it really alerted a lot of us to, why does he keep doing this? Is there something else going on? Is there something wrong?
Rick's behavior makes officers immediately suspicious, so they approach him for an interview on site.
During the interview, Mr. Hartman had indicated that he was really close friends with Sharon.
When Sharon would leave town, she would leave a key in her post office box for him to check on her house. So he was trusted by her.
Sharon would come visit him every day when she'd come pick up her mail.
But Rick tells police he didn't see Sharon that morning. He was asked to check on her after a worried relative didn't hear from Sharon that evening.
Rick Hartman, he had gone looking for Sharon. Sharon was nowhere to be found.
Mr. Hartman opened the garage door and you could see Sharon laying beside her car.
Without prompting, he indicated that it was a suicide, that she had a gun, knew how to use it. But we were very confident that there was foul play involved.
When Rick is asked to make a formal statement, his demeanor abruptly changes.
He said, "If you're going to arrest me, otherwise I'm leaving." I was taken aback.
Why would he say that? Why would he do that?
We needed to look a little harder at this person and find out what that was all about.
Coming up, new evidence reveals a disturbing detail.
She'd been sexually assaulted. I was definitely shocked.
Small-town gossip sparks salacious rumors.
There may have been more than just a friendship there.
He was trying to hide additional evidence.
And just when detectives think they have the killer in their sights,
It had to be him.
a startling truth is revealed.
It sent shockwaves through the entire area.
I went, what? You've got to be kidding.
Police investigating the murder of Sharon Erickson are speaking to her close friend, Rick Hartman. But when they ask him for a statement, Rick suddenly ends the interview.
He was upset that he couldn't leave. and finally just told the investigators that I'm going to leave, and if you want to arrest me, go ahead and arrest me.
That was pretty out of character and uncharacteristic for somebody who had a friend that was just killed. So that immediately caused investigators some concern.
His statements and odd behavior really pointed us in a direction towards the postmaster.
Mr. Hartman gave his alibi. He was at home with his family, and that was confirmed by his wife.
Rick never had any criminal record or had done anything wrong, so there wasn't a great deal of focus on him any more than anybody else.
Rick's on the back burner for now, but investigators will keep him in their sights.
We didn't want to rule anybody out specifically, but we wanted to cast a wide net.
While investigators consider their next move, news of the murder, the first one in 40 years, travels fast.
The town of Colon was buzzing. Well, I got calls, bang, bang, bang. I can't remember who called first. I went, what? That's all I got, and I just was dumbfounded. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. When you hear of someone that you know and you knew for 25, 30 years, it's devastating. Everyone's just shaking their heads saying, how can this happen? How can this happen?
Sharon's death was a big loss for our community. She had known so many people through her work, through her friends, and to not have her in the community anymore, that always creates a hole. Everybody spoke well of her.
She was beloved by the people in the community. We didn't know where to start looking, so we tried to determine anything potentially that could have happened. Is it a close friend that got into an argument with her? Is it a neighbor that maybe didn't like her?
The day after the murder, police canvassed Sharon's neighborhood.
They questioned almost everybody that knew Sharon about, have you heard anything? Do you have any information that can help us? And I said, I have no idea. No idea. She had no enemies. Nobody had a clue who would do something like that. It has to be someone that we don't know. I mean, it has to be someone that came from town.
While we don't have a lot of violent crime in the area, there was definitely one family that lived right behind Sharon that came to mind as somebody that could have been concerning.
The investigators had made contact with Jim Mars. He was an individual that would get into trouble here and there.
He wasn't real responsible. He associated with people that were involved in minor crimes such as burglaries, drug use.
Asked what his relationship with Sharon was, and basically it was just an acquaintance. Mr. Mars would see her occasionally outside of her house when he was going to the post office or on Main Street. They would say hi. He said he got in trouble by her a couple times for mischief when he was younger, and she would yell at him.
When we interviewed Jim Mars, he didn't know anything about Sharon's death, and he was so sorry that she died.
Jim had been in Kansas doing a roofing job. After he got back from Kansas, he eventually went to Wahoo, drank some beer with a friend, attempted to go to another bar. At that time, it was after closing time, and he drove the back roads home to Colon. He estimated he got home about 1:30 in the morning. Stayed up, watched TV, drank a pop, and then eventually went to bed.
His mom confirmed the time that he came home. Everything seemed to be okay with his story.
Investigators don't know the exact time of Sharon's death, so the 24-year-old remains on the suspect list. Before police leave, Jim gives them a tip.
Jim had indicated that there was a trucker that always had interactions and always seemed to be bickering with Miss Erickson. The truck driver may have parked a little bit on her property and she'd get upset about it. He might have his engine running on his truck and it would bother her.
And she would bring it to his attention, and he would not necessarily comply with her request.
It was no secret the two didn't get along.
We were gaining information from friends that Sharon had had disputes with this man.
Detectives must now determine if a run-in with the trucker turned fatal.
A lot of the community members felt that the truck driver was doing things to antagonize her and to cause more problems between them.
That was something that was public because there had been some shouting matches, some vocal exchanges about the fact that this truck was running all night.
Some of the people in the community who knew that he wasn't overly fond with Sharon, they kind of rumored him to be a suspect.
Maybe the frustration amongst the two had just finally boiled over. It just seemed suspicious.
I know the investigators had attempted to reach out to the truck driver in question and were unable to contact him.
Police do all they can, but can't track down the driver's whereabouts.
Today's technology is there's cameras everywhere. You're using your cell phone. At the time of this homicide, that kind of technology wasn't prevalent.
We didn't know if we were going to find that person.
Is Sharon Erickson's murderer on the run?
That's concerning, and that was on the minds of probably all the citizens in this area. And probably the scariest thing for law enforcement in the community is that person likely to offend again?
Police hunting the killer of 66-year-old Sharon Erickson have a new suspect, a truck driver she had clashed with several times.
Had something escalated from vocal argument to some other level.
Now, detectives fear the trucker has fled the area.
They went door to door, asked people if they saw the truck driver. No one had any information about him, and it didn't appear we were any further along than we were the night we got there, and the town was on high alert.
There's a murderer out there. It's hard to contemplate. Hard to contemplate.
A week after Sharon's murder, detectives received the autopsy results.
The report did indicate that the death would have occurred sometime, most likely that night or the early morning hours of the day that she was found.
The medical examiner indicated that there was no gunshot wounds, that the gun had not been used in the commission of the crime.
The pathologist ruled the cause of death to be asphyxiation along with blunt force trauma.
It was found that Sharon had been beaten pretty severely. She had also been strangled. She also suffered some broken ribs and had some defensive wounds on her hands from fighting off her attacker.
The autopsy contains one more disturbing detail.
She had a small vaginal tear as well, which indicated that she'd been sexually assaulted. I was definitely shocked that there was a sexual assault involved.
Totally unexpected. It added a new twist to the crime, which further led to more questions. It really makes you feel for the victim. She had to have been terrified for those few minutes that she struggled at the end of her life.
During the autopsy, her underwear were taken for possible examination for DNA. This being pretty early in the DNA process in the early 2000s, we waited.
2 days later, on July 10th, the trucker is back in town and police bring him in for questioning.
He's not overly cooperative. He was reluctant to give any details about where he was, what he was doing.
Detectives press the trucker on his relationship with Sharon.
The truck driver wouldn't have called Sharon a friend. He felt irritated by the way she would overreact, I believe is how he termed it.
He did not have a good relationship with her.
But the truck driver vows he's no killer.
He told us he was out of town at the time of the homicide. He was in Wyoming or Colorado. He was hundreds of miles away and had receipts to prove it. Officers were sent off to corroborate the receipt. He was asked for a DNA sample and a polygraph, and he refused.
Was the trucker hiding something?
It's just one of the things that you can add to a list of items that if there's too many on that list, it's a problem.
With nothing concrete linking the trucker to the homicide, detectives have to let him go.
Law enforcement officers were in the process of interviewing and chasing down alibis.
We'd been following up with people, but there was not a lot of new information coming in and not a lot of credible information.
With Sharon's murder still unsolved, the community remains on high alert.
Before this happened, it was probably one of the safest places you'd want to be. Everyone's on their toes. You know, you drive up, you lock your car, you lock your house, you watch everything. Here's a lady that just retired, 60-some years old. Who could do this? It just was a shock to the whole county.
As a community, you want resolution, or you at least want to know why it happened and how can we get some justice out of this.
Although the entire town is mourning the loss of Sharon, Rick Hartman seems to be taking an unnaturally keen interest in the investigation.
Rick would ask us about what we were doing about other leads, and then he would insert his thoughts.
His behavior was a little more pushy, trying to get as much information as Rick could.
Is this just a concerned friend who wants to see how the investigation's going, or is there something more to than that?
Despite his odd behavior, Rick still has a solid alibi, and the investigation stalls.
We decided that we all needed to get back together and just have like a brainstorm session and say, what do we do? One of the things that we talked about is at the time of the homicide, early 2000s, meth had been a problem.
People would steal anhydrous ammonia from tanks and then use that to create their own methamphetamine.
Some of these people were heavy addicts, very dangerous, and involved in a lot of crimes.
One of the things that was being discussed with the anhydrous tanks was they were not too far from Sharon's home. So could she have seen something? Could she have spotted something, said something to make someone believe that she knew who they were and what they were doing?
Did Sharon confront them? Did they attack her to keep her quiet?
We might be looking for somebody who's manufacturing and selling methamphetamine who may have been in Colon on that particular night.
5 weeks after Sharon Erickson is savagely beaten to death, detectives investigate whether she had been killed by a criminal gang manufacturing illegal drugs near her home.
It's an easy target, no cameras in that area. We were aware that Sharon kept an eye on Main Street. She a lot of times had information about suspicious people, something going on after hours there.
Sharon was one that if she saw something that she didn't think was right, she wasn't afraid to stand up and say something.
Maybe she saw something that she shouldn't have. She interrupted a burglary or a theft. As we talked to people around town, they also indicated that that might have been one of the reasons why Sharon may have been murdered.
Investigators had talked to local suspects who were involved in the manufacturing of methamphetamine. People that we had arrested previous to this incident, and then people from the metro areas. Most of them have pretty extensive criminal records, and they're heavily addicted. So the level of cooperation with somebody who's addicted to methamphetamine is not going to be very good.
It creates a difficult picture to paint. We were not able to generate the type of evidence or leads that we really would hope for.
We as a department were frustrated with things not happening real fast and the way that you always want.
The canvas fails to yield the information police were looking for, as does the investigation into the trucker.
As the investigation unfolded, the truck driver was eliminated. He was miles and miles away from the incident. We contacted the establishment where he got fuel, and it wasn't a phony receipt.
With this, the driver is fully off the suspect list.
After doing the first set of interviews and looking at potential suspects, the investigators really weren't able to focus on anybody that would be so mad or somebody that would want to sexually assault Sharon or to kill her. So it kind of left a lot of question marks. Where do you go? What do you look for? There's just a lot of unknowns.
We just don't know what's going on. Do we feel safe or do we need to worry?
Everybody had their ideas who did this, and I think it just kept going and going and going. People didn't have a clue, but they wanted to talk about it.
There was a lot of discussion amongst the community members